Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be diving into something a lot of you have been asking about, the number one in numerology. And let me tell you, we are absolutely swimming in articles here, from numerology.com and astroyogi.com to the Times of India, all about the number one personality. So get ready to decode this powerful little number.
It's really interesting, because numerology isn't just like, oh, this number means this. It's more like this whole secret language that helps us uncover deeper meanings about ourselves and like the universe even.
Okay, I am here for the secret language vibes. So let's decode, shall we? I think one thing that really jumped out at me looking at all of our sources is that everyone seems to agree. The number one is all about beginnings, like that first spark of creation. But what's really cool is how that energy translates into an actual personality type.
Right. And it screams independence, doesn't it? Like the ultimate trailblazer leading the way, totally forging their own path, which, by the way, I thought was interesting. Because you know how numerology sometimes like assigns genders to numbers?
Yeah.
Well, the number one is seen as gender neutral, even though it's mostly linked with masculine traits. Kind of a fun contradiction, don't you think?
I never even thought about that, but it makes total sense. That pure creative force, the very beginning of everything, it just like transcends gender.
Exactly. It's
Uh,
bigger than that. And speaking of things that are bigger than life, if we're talking about the number one personality, every single one of these sources zeroes in on that fierce independence. I mean, we're not just talking about being self-sufficient here, though that's definitely a part of it. These are ambitious, driven people who are constantly reaching for the top, no matter what.
Total go-getters, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes me think of so many successful CEOs,
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, like Oprah, Steve Jobs. They not only dared to dream big, but then they actually took charge and made it happen.
Exactly. It's like they have this natural leadership energy. Astroyogi.com called it innate charisma, which I thought was a great way to put it. And it's not even that they want all eyes on necessarily. It's more that their vision, their confidence, it just like naturally draws people in. Think about someone like Martin Luther King Jr. He had this dream, this unwavering belief, and that powerful number one energy. It literally sparked a movement.
I know. So inspiring. But okay, here's where it gets really interesting to me. Because while all that sounds incredible, who wouldn't want to be seen as a visionary leader?
Mm.
There has to be another side to it, right?
Yeah.
Even with all those amazing qualities, there's got to be some drawbacks to being a number one.
Oh, absolutely. And you're right. This is where the sources really didn't hold back. You see, that same fierce independence that fuels all that drive? Well, it can sometimes make it tough for number ones to, really work collaboratively with others. Numerology.com actually went as far as to say that ones can even come across as like uncaring or even domineering, especially if someone challenges their vision.
Oof. Yeah, so those my way or the highway tendencies. Maybe not just a stereotype after all.
Right. And the thing is, these are people who are wired for action. I mean, they can be incredibly single-minded when they're going after something they want. And that laser focus can lead to amazing breakthroughs, but it can also lead to some pretty risky decisions. Because, well, they're so focused on their own path, they might completely miss valuable input or different perspectives. And that can definitely lead to some bumps in the road.
It's like they're so busy charging ahead that they forget to like look around and make sure everyone's still with them.
Exactly. And that actually brings us to another interesting, kind of contradictory thing we found in the research: the hidden vulnerability of the number one. You see, beneath all that confidence, there's often this like deep-seated fear of failure.
Wait, really? But they seem so self-assured all the time.
Right. But it makes sense if you think about it. Their standards are so high and they're constantly pushing themselves to achieve more. So even the smallest setback can feel like this huge blow to like their entire sense of self-worth.
Almost like they think they have to carry the weight of the world, and like they have to do it all themselves, which, I mean, come on, that's got to be exhausting.
Absolutely. And honestly, that really highlights how important it is for number ones to find balance. I mean, learning to accept their limitations, asking for
hmm
help when they need it. Heck, even just embracing those occasional failures as part of the journey. That's huge for their own personal growth.
It's almost like realizing, hey, even the most independent trailblazer doesn't have to go it alone all the time.
You got it. And speaking of not going it alone, let's talk about relationships for a minute.
Okay.
What does it actually take to be in a happy, successful relationship as a number one?
Okay, yes, because what's the point of diving into like the cosmic significance of numbers if we don't talk about the good stuff, right?
Hmm. Right. And actually, there seems to be a consensus in our sources that the most important thing is finding a partner who can not only handle a number one's strong personality, but someone who actually appreciates it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Astroyogi.com specifically mentioned number threes and fives as being super compatible.
Oh, interesting. Is that because they tend to be pretty independent themselves?
Hmm.
Like threes always seem to have a million things going on,
Mhm.
and fives are all about adventure and freedom.
Exactly. Those types thrive in environments where they have like connection but also independence, which, let's face it, is exactly what a number one needs, right? They need a partner who's not intimidated by their ambition, but also someone who can give them the space to like actually chase their dreams.
It's about finding that sweet spot
Right.
where you're supporting each other, but you're also giving each other room to breathe.
100%. And speaking of things that resonate with that number one energy, did you know certain colors are actually considered lucky for people who are influenced by this number?
Okay, now you're speaking my language. Tell me more.
Well, a bunch of our sources, like astroyogi.com and even that Times of India article, they all mention gold, orange, and yellow as being super auspicious for number ones.
Wait, so you're telling me if I like surround myself with these colors, I'm going to magically transform into this successful, charismatic entrepreneur? Asking for a friend, obviously.
Well, I can't promise you that, but what I can tell you is that these colors, they're associated with specific qualities that really do line up with like the core traits of a number one. Like gold, it represents success and abundance, right? And orange, it's all about energy and enthusiasm. And yellow symbolizes optimism and clarity.
So it's not just about the colors themselves, it's about the energy behind them. It's like they're like magnifying those number one vibes.
Exactly. And that's what I think is so cool about numerology. It's not just, this number means that. It's about understanding how these numbers connect to like these bigger ideas and energies, even colors. It's almost like this whole language waiting for us to understand it.
Oh, totally. And we've barely scratched the surface here. I mean,
Mm.
we spent all this time on the number one, but think about how much more numerology can tell us when you bring in your whole birth date, your name, your address. It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
Right.
It's like this whole other way of looking at ourselves, looking at the world, and it's all about the power of numbers.
Exactly. And every little detail just adds another layer? Like we haven't even talked about all the different numerology systems out there. Did you know, like in Pythagorean numerology, which is one of the most popular ones, each letter of the alphabet actually has a specific number value.
Wait, really? So like my name isn't just my name, it's a whole math problem waiting to be solved.
Exactly. And when you like do those calculations, it can reveal even more about your personality,
Yeah.
your strengths, your weaknesses, even your like life path.
Okay, I'm telling you, I am hooked.
Yeah.
But before we like totally fall down the numerology rabbit hole here, let's come back around to our listener. What would you say is like the key takeaway here? What does it really mean to really embody that number one energy?
Oh, that's a great question. I think the biggest takeaway here is it's all about embracing that inner trailblazer. That's what the number one is all about. Leadership, innovation, creating your own path.
Yeah.
So if any of that resonates with you, don't be afraid to, dream big, set big goals, and go after them with everything you've got.
I mean, that's easier said than done.
Right? Totally. But that's where that, like, natural number one drive comes in.
Right.
Exactly. But you also got to remember, independence doesn't have to mean you're out there totally on your own?
Yeah.
Even the strongest leaders, they need a good team. So don't be afraid to lean on other people when you need help or, like, just a fresh perspective on things.
Yeah. Find your people, but like, don't be afraid to stand out from the crowd when you need to.
Exactly. Embrace what makes you strong, know your weaknesses, and never stop, like, exploring all that potential you have inside.
I love that.
Yes.
So it's not just about being number one. It's about being like the best you can be, no matter what your numbers say, right?
Yeah, 100%.
This was so fascinating. Seriously, I am ready to start calculating everyone's numbers I know.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much, like, one number can tell us, isn't it?
Totally. Well, that does it for today's deep dive. We hope this has inspired you to maybe do a little digging into numerology yourself. And until next time, stay curious, friends.